Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us at today's eClaims webinar. My name is Anthony Contento. I'm the Program Manager at the eClaims unit. And joining me today is Mike Hunter, who is also a Program Manager of the eClaims unit. We do ask that you please keep your phone lines muted today, as we will be using the Q&A feature to receive your questions. Please enter them throughout the presentation in the Q&A box, which is located in the lower right-hand side of your screen. When sending us your questions, please send as detailed of a question that you have, and also, if you would like to submit them and through another means, you can actually hover over the WebEx tab at the top of your screen and click on Q&A to submit your questions. Now, we will answer as many of your questions that we can, but if we do find that we are unable to get to some of them today, or if perhaps you think of one after the end of the presentation, we will be providing you with contact information so you can submit them to us. Going over today's agenda, first off, we'll be going over table changes that will be coming effective this week, both on the 18th and on the 23rd. We'll then be going over changes that will become effective in April of this year, so a few months from now. We'll be going over some FOIA reminders, just some helpful hints and tips. And then we'll be going over the top 3 most frequent errors that were returned during the last 90 days. Then we'll be going over some good news, acceptance rate improvements that we saw during 2023. And again, as I stated before, going over any questions that you may have posed to us during today's presentation with any time frame that we have left. Next up is Mike with the July 2023 eClaims change log.
Thank you, Tony. As Tony mentioned, we're going to go over the change log items that we've posted for changes coming up both this week, next week, and in April. So as Tony noted, we had published changes back in July 2023, and some of these changes are becoming effective this week and a few next week. We'll go over a few of these just to highlight some of the changes on your screen, but as always, we will provide you with this presentation shortly after the webinar later this week. You'll notice changelog item 352, then table update. There was a clerical edit made to update and clarify the interest due to the claimant is payable within 10 days, but the report is due within 16 days. We had a question come up, and the current wording had made it sound like both the report and payment were due within 10 days, but the report is actually due within 16. Changelog item 364. Again, we had updated element error text for all DNs defined on the screen there from DN 62 wage all the way through DN 435 reduced earnings net weekly amount. We just made an edit that it now reads must be greater than or equal to 0. This was part of the changes as both the IAIBC had made changes as well as ourselves to protect against negative numbers that had been seen coming in through transactions. And changelog item 367, we just added the L under error 120, no embedded spaces, per IAIBC changelog EM 145. We grayed out the new error as we will not be applying that edit. Changelog item number 363, we had modified the population restriction for date of injury, and this was as a result of trading partner feedback. We relaxed that population restriction so that it now reads that on the FROIO2 and SROIO2 that DN 199 full denial effective date will only need to be updated to be on or after date of injury if the denial is still in effect. Previously, it was looking back at if you had filed a FROI or SROIO form, there was a full denial effective date. If you change date of injury after you'd already accepted, it would require you to change that full denial date. We realize that that is not practical considering that you had since accepted the claim. Again, we published edits to be implemented on January 18th of this year. The one is for DN63, wage period code. Changelog item 355 was changed so that both the FROI-02 and SROI-02 reportable change code for remove is now changed to J. This was to allow wage period code to be updated on the FROI. Changelog item 356 added a new conditional requirement for the FROI-02. The following new edits were posted on the changelog in July, 6 months notice as per the IIBC standard. For changelog item 357, number of days worked per week, we modified the FROI-02 and SROI-02 reportable change code for add and update from K, which is required change on FROI, to J, change on SROI if accepted. Otherwise, you can change on the FROI. The business need behind this was that it was based on population restrictions being applied and allows for DN64 to be updated on the 02, along with DN204 workweek type code and DN205 workday schedule code, which both have a reportable change code from add and update to J. Changelog item 371 modified the population restriction for DN64, 064 A and B to include all 02s. The July changelog published for changelog items 361, 360, and 362, as well as 369 are on the screen. 361, we changed the severity rankings on 40 data elements on SROIs from NA to AR. This was to resolve errors related to flat filers on some of their 02 changes. This again was due to feedback from trading partners that were receiving rejections. They had previously submitted data to us on fields that were NA, but could be AR. So we looked at those fields and we increased that severity ranking to AR so that we have it in our system and won't necessarily reject that on an 02 that comes in later on. On changelog item 360 and 62, we changed dependent payee relationship code, first name, last name, and date of birth on the SROI SA from NA to MC. This again was to resolve issues for flat filers with their last reported data elements and was related to rejections they were receiving on 02s. In changelog item 369, we removed the SA from number of dependent payee relationships due to the other change from NA to MC in changelog item 362. The following edits are again were released last July. These are being implemented next week. Changelog item 358 is related to the employee email address, new DN in the standard. And so we updated our FROI element requirement table to be consistent with the IIBC standard, which allows us to list as AR for most FROIs and NA on the FROI-01. Changelog item 368, we added L under error 120, no embedded spaces, and 121, no leading spaces. As I mentioned earlier, we grayed out error 120. Changelog item 370, a new population restriction, just that it must be a valid email that has an embedded @ sign. As we know, emails all have an @ sign, so it's just to ensure that we at least get a potentially valid email address. Another edit being implemented on January 25th, a new population restriction for error 111, and this will be added to all DNs identified as alphanumeric. And it just reads if an alphanumeric number is sent on a data element that the board has asked for, then the value cannot be characters not found in the IIBC Claims EDI standard under the acceptable character list for alphanumeric data types. This is listed in section 2 of the implementation guide, and the acceptable characters are listed on the screen. Next, I'm going to go over our changes that were posted in October and effective April 18th of this year. Again, we won't go over all of the changes on the screen. They are out on the changelog if you haven't reviewed it, and I will encourage you to review it if you've not done so already. But just to go over a couple of those on the screen, You'll see changelog item 373 and 374, clerical edits that we made. We realized their element error text was not consistent with our edit, so it's a bit misleading if someone received a rejection. On the Troy PY, it used to read with no benefit segment, it must be L. In reality, we will accept that with no benefit segment if it's L or null. So we updated our element to error text to be more consistent. We also implemented a new population restriction for award order date. This is actually a relaxation. Before, we would only allow up to, I believe it was 5 days. We actually, based on trading partner feedback, we changed that, and now it can no longer be more than 35 days into the future. Again, this is sort of a relaxed edit, and the reason behind this is that we issue proposed decisions quite a bit. They could be either a proposed decision or administrative decision. Those don't become final till 30 days in the future. And we had trading partners who were not objecting to those decisions and wished to issue the payment immediately. When they did so, they had to hold their EDI transaction because they were not able to submit an award order date 30 days in the future. So again, we relaxed that to 35 days in the future. That way you can pay right away and submit that transaction. Next, we're just going to go over a reminder regarding FROIS. I know we've hit on this in the past. We were asked to issue this reminder again. Reminder for the FROI AQ and AU, when a new claim administrator takes over a claim, this FROI AQ or AU should be filed on all active cases, including cases that have medical actively being paid. Failure to file that AQ or AU, as some of you may be familiar with, could result in issues with your prior authorization request from onboard being improperly assigned to the old third-party administrator because we are not aware that you are the new third-party administrator. Failure to file those AQs and AUs, the board could impose Section 25(3) penalty for failure to file that required form. This penalty is imposed outside of the monitoring unit process and is imposed at a case level based on statutes. Reminder for FROI 02 requirements when insurer FEN changes. Please remember that if the insurer FEN is changing on a transaction that you file the FROI 02, if you're paying indemnity and or medical. Again, this could affect prior authorization requests and whether they're assigned to you if we don't have the correct insurer on the claim. When the board receives a transaction and the insurer does not match the primary insurer on the case, we look at our insurance compliance system, proof of coverage records, and based on that, we may request a FROI 02 from you to update the insurer. That FROI 02 should be filed, or a response to that email request should be sent with the correct policy information if you believe we have the incorrect policy information. Very important that you communicate that and do not ignore those emails. As some of you know, we will follow up with you. So you're going to get another email from us asking for it again versus taking care of it that first time. Very similar to the AQs and AUs, we could impose the Section 25(3) penalty for failure to file the required form if we're ignored multiple times. This penalty is outside of the monitoring unit process, but could be imposed on the case level. I'll also mention that if it goes to hearing and there's still issues related to denials due to incorrect PAR assignment and something not being filed, as some are aware, the judge can also impose 114A3 penalties as well if it's an unnecessary hearing. For the FROI UR and SA requirements, when indemnity is being paid, please remember that Troy subannual, the SA, should be filed on all cases that indemnity is being paid. The 4AOO or UR may need to be filed first on those old cases. If it's part of a legacy file, I would highly encourage that you file the 4AUR rather than the OO, since that has some relaxed requirements on it. If another claim administrator has acquired the claim, please turn off your Troy SA trigger. We've found claims where a claim administrator may have lost their reporting ability 6, 8, 12 months ago, and a new TPA has taken over, and Troy SAs are being filed. While we do address those when they come up, we'd ask you to just check your system and make sure they're turned off if you're no longer the TPA. Similar to the last slide, failure to file those could result in issues with prior authorization requests in the onboard system, as well as possibly a penalty for failure to file a required form. I'm now going to go over the most frequent errors returned during the past 90 days. A couple of those are carryovers from the last webinar, and I believe number 3 is a new error that moved up from number 4. The most common error for the last 90 days, as well as the top error for 2022 and 2023, again, is a carryover edit from Release 3. This population restriction 0085064A is intended to prevent a new benefit type code from being introduced as a sweep benefit if it was not previously submitted as an event benefit or a sweep on the Troy UR SA. This is based on the IAIBC Claims EDI Section 4 rules and is not specific to New York. You want to make sure that your systems are programmed accordingly to avoid further rejections. The second most common error returned in the past 90 days is also a Release 3.0 carryover, and that's to ensure that agreement to compensate code is sent with liability after the board has issued a notice that the case has been established with ANCR or ODNCR in accordance with Section 21A. FTP filers should ensure their systems are again programmed accordingly to avoid rejections. The third most common error returned in the past 90 days, another carryover from Release 3. It's not a new 3.1 edit. This supports the IAIBC Claims EDI rules that do not allow benefit period start dates to be prior to an initial date disability began, the N56, when the benefit type code is other than 030 or 5XX, so any of those 500 benefit type codes. FTP filers should ensure their systems are programmed accordingly again to prevent further rejections. With that, I am going to turn it over to Tony to talk about acceptance rates for 2023.
Thanks, Mike. So the team wanted to highlight the improvement in the acceptance rate that we saw during 2023. And on the graph that's before you, you can see that during the first quarter of the year, the rejected rates were at least 10% or higher. However, they were seeing a relatively steady reduction of those rejected transaction rates from month to month, ending in only 5.52% transactions being rejected for the month of December. So I just want to thank you for your hard work and your diligence in trying to bring those rates down, the rejected rates down. And I want to offer kudos to you, just not only for myself, but also the entire eClaims staff. That was something that you should be proud of, and it was a great effort by all. And with that, we're at the questions portion of our presentation. So I want to just let you be aware that there's going to be periods of silence as we read those questions that you've been sending us during today's presentation. If you haven't yet and you come up with something, please go ahead and send it to us via the Q&A feature. So as of right now, you're going to hear, again, a period of silence, and we're going to be reviewing those questions that you've submitted to us now. So thank you for the patients.
Thank you, Tony. First question is for part of body related to death claims. How should part of body be coded on a death claim? There is actually a population restriction that requires you use whole body. The code is 99. That is required if date of death is populated on that death case on the FROI. Next question is regarding changing an ACR segment and whether the board maintains any of that history in our system. So the board does maintain transactions, any accepted or rejected flat file transactions, and any accepted web data transactions in our system, as well as they're available to you in eClaims inquiry. So if you're to look in eClaims inquiry for a specific case, you could go through the transactional history of accepted and rejected transactions for that case. You can make changes to ACR segments. If you have specific examples, they can always be sent to the eClaims at wcb.ny.gov mailbox, and we can take a look and help you with those.
I think that's all we received for the questions today. No one else submitted anything else at this time. But before I do conclude today's presentation, I want to make sure that you're aware of some methods to stay informed on the latest eClaims news and upcoming engagement opportunities. You could visit the eClaims website at wcb.ny.gov to stay up to date on the latest eClaims news. And you can also sign up to receive news straight to your inbox. So if you visit the eClaims site and select WCB notifications within the eClaims overview section, you'll be able to sign up for those notifications where they'll be sent, again, straight to your email, and you're afforded opportunities in selecting various topics and subjects that you'd be interested in getting updates for. And as always, we welcome you and your valued questions, feedback, suggestions. So please continue to send them to us at eclaims@wcb.ny.gov. And you can also follow the board through Facebook, X, which is formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And as a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be placed on our YouTube and eClaims webpage. So be on the lookout for that within the next few days. It should be posted. So again, thank you for joining us, taking the time out of your busy day to being part of today's presentation. We do greatly appreciate it. And again, always submit those questions, comments, suggestions to us whenever you see fit. They are greatly welcome and valued. So we appreciate that and your time today. Have a good day.